What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. It's a gloomy old day outside full of cloud and rain, and it's all horrible and wet, and it just reminds me of the time that I went down to Murrayfield last, which was last year, to watch the Wales-Scotland game. So it seems like perfectly apt weather to talk about the Scotland summer squad. Now, I don't really own a Scotland jersey. I do like the jersey. I might pick it up. This is as close as I can get to tartan, so hopefully it will do for all my Scottish subscribers that are going to be watching this. So Scotland was a team that got announced like last week, and I completely missed it. I don't know how. Even now, if you Google the summer squad that's been announced for Scotland, there's still like 2 results on Google. I don't know what's happened there, but for some reason it was really under the radar for me. I completely missed it. So we have already done the Wales team and the England team the other day, so if you want to go check out those videos, feel free to go check them out after this one. So we'll talk about the Scotland team. We'll do the same sort of format. I'll chuck them up here for you guys so you can watch as they're going through. And there is a very interesting team named. 37 men named in this squad from Mike Blair, the interim coach. Let's start off with the forwards. 17 uncapped players, not necessarily just in the forwards, in the backs as well. But there's a lot to talk about going on in this team. I mean, there's a few new names in here. Ewan Ashman is one of the big names being talked about at the minute. He was born in Canada. He could have played for England, but he's chosen to play for Scotland. So there's a bit of a running theme beginning to happen here with players that could play for England choosing for other teams, which is surprising a few people. I think Zammit was one of them for Wales. Cameron Redpath was another one for Scotland who went over to Scotland. So people are definitely looking into going into those other teams. You know, the big money's in England, but yet they're going for the international clubs elsewhere. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ewan Ashman gets on. There are, of course, some names that a lot of people will know. Simon Bergen, Jamie Batty, Matt Fagerson, who had a really good Six Nations, to be honest. He was really, really impressing me. I mean, he might have even got number 8 of the tournament for a couple of people. For me, Falatau, maybe CJ Stander were outdoing him a little bit in that 8 shirt, but really nice to see the work he's doing in that backfield, running straight up when he's catching it through, making a huge impact. Jamie Ritchie down there has been named as captain. Don't think that's a bad choice. I don't know if I see him being too talkative with a referee, Jamie Ritchie. Definitely very well, versed in terms of caps and a very good player on the field. Can be a little bit hot-headed. We've definitely seen a couple of cards shown his way in the past. Hopefully that'll help him settle down a little bit, being captain, not to be super aggressive, but definitely to go for some of those jackal 50-50s we'd like to see from him. Ollie Kebble, who's on far fewer caps than I thought he was. Ollie Kebble feels like he's been around for a good couple of years now, still on the single-digit caps for him. Sam Skinner, and of course I did see in there somewhere Scott Cummings. Yes, he is in there. So there's a couple of really big names still in this forward squad. There is a lot of forwards named in here, actually, along with George Turner and David Cherry. And I was hoping that David Cherry was going to get a bit more time on the international scene. He is looking like he's going to be very impressive. George Turner had a really good Six Nations, bar the game against Ireland. It was Ireland where they struggled with the lineouts. I did do a review on that game. I should remember a little bit more about it, but George Turner playing really well in that. But David Cherry also a really good backup hooker, so it's going to be nice to see him get hopefully a little bit more game time going into this tour. But overall, 10 new uncapped players coming into this forward squad. So they aren't messing about. They're not just going to bring in a big team. It's definitely going to be used for a training exercise. This is a lot of actual uncapped players. 17 named. I did talk about the England team. I can't remember what that was. I think it was 21 had to be named for the England team because of all their issues with player picks. I'm not aware of a lot of player picks being issues for Scotland. I know a couple of them, of course, will be off on the Lions tour. So they'll be really interesting to see now how they deal with that, because, of course, a lot of the real big names from Scotland will have gone on that Lions tour. They've lost their Rory Sutherland in prop. They've lost Hogg at fullback. They've lost Finn Russell in that fly half position. So it's going to be really interesting. Talking about those backs, let's move on to talking about the backs for a second. So again, a couple of new names in here. Jack Blaine, Jamie Dobby. There's a couple of new people coming in here, but a couple of people that are going to be looking to get back in this squad. People like Adam Hastings, who of course for quite a while was the number 1 choice at fly half for Scotland, and then with Finn Russell coming back with all the background issues resolved, we got to see a lot more of Finn Russell coming back into that team, especially this year just gone. Adam Hastings is a really good fly half. He does play a lot more at fullback, I've seen at club level, which I didn't actually know was a big thing for him, but he is very good at the fullback position, but I like to see him in that fly half, so no doubt he'll maybe be pushing for starting fly half in the squad going on here. George Horn coming in, Blair Kinghorn, who I assume will be the top man for that fullback position now with Hogg not being there. Can play wing, can play fullback, but I do actually quite like him at fullback. He's got a real good height to him. I like seeing him on that left wing, but just no one seems to want to give him the ball when he plays on the left wing. I don't know what goes on with Blair King on the left wing. James Lang, who didn't have a terrible tournament. One name that isn't on here, actually, is Cameron Redpath, which I actually didn't realise until just now. So I actually probably need to have a look into that. I don't know if that's an injury situation or if that's the injury that he picked up from the Six Nations. I can't believe that's still going on. That's a long time out if that is still an injury, but that's a shame for him. I thought this could have been a real good tournament for him to step up and make it in that centre department. Scott Steele will, of course, be coming. Of course, now we've got no Ali Price, so the combat for the scrum half position could be really looking strong, and Kyle Steyn going to be in there as well. I mean, there's a good selection of players here. In fact, I reckon they could maybe even make a starting 15 out of already capped Scotland players from this. I reckon there's probably the capabilities in there, but it's going to be interesting to see how they manage to culminate this new team together. A couple of new players, a couple of older players. They've got the luxury, compared to England, of some of their players still having very high-end caps. England had to go 21 uncapped, and then have also got the players that have caps are all sort of barely making the double digits. I mean, you've got your people in here, you know, your Jamie Ritchie is captain. I'm sure they've got to be up there in their 30 caps or so now. There's a lot of experience here, so I'm sure they'll probably do a 50-50 mix of a lot of uncapped players, mix them in with fully capped players to try and get them in. And they've got a couple of interesting games coming up, in all honesty. It's going to be playing that England A team on June 27th. Now, of course, this will be an England team that's going to be wildly experimental. It's going to be quite hard to be able to manage what they're going to do with that team. A lot of uncapped players going to be in that team, most likely, before England get to review that team going on for their other two games. Scotland, after playing England, have both Romania and Georgia. Romania being on the 10th of July, Georgia on the 17th of July. Now, there's a lot of time here for a lot of uncapped players, and that's why I actually thought they had a much harder sort of summer tour going to be going on. But Romania, very much a sort of tier 2 nation in terms of rugby. They're definitely trying to get up in the world. They just don't seem to quite break away in that department. I think, did they actually get banned from the World Cup last year? Was it Romania? I'm going to remember completely wrong now. I think they had an issue with too many players being picked and so on. But Georgia, of course, we got to see in that Autumn Nations Cup. We didn't get to have this game happen, Scotland versus Georgia, in the Autumn Nations Cup, and I'm really looking forward to that one specifically. Scotland have become a much more aggressive team, as we saw in the Six Nations. It was their best Six Nations we've seen from them in so long, maybe ever. And they could have arguably done even better. They lost to Wales by a point, even though they had a red card in that game. They had a couple of fantastic games. You know what they looked like they really slipped up was, of course, against that Ireland game. Ireland just came out with a better game plan for that one, really ready for them. France, they managed to beat in that absolute tooth and nail battle right at the end. Julan just couldn't do anything with the ball. It all went horribly wrong for them. But Georgia, a very heavy forwards pack, and their backs begin to sort of fade out a little bit in terms of how we know from Georgia. So Scotland coming in here, they have loaded their forwards up. I wonder where they're going to target that game. I would say probably out of Romania and Georgia, Georgia are going to be the tougher game for Scotland. So loading up on the forwards, being able to have that utility, think it's going to be very useful against Georgia, seeing if they can work them down. No doubt they'll go for a similar method we got to see in the Autumn Nations Cup, where teams load up on the forwards, tire out the Georgian forwards, and then release some of the fast players. We know how fast people like Blair Kinghorn can be when they are released, and of course some of the new people coming in here, I'm sure, will be absolute flyers when they get the chance. So it's going to be a really fun tournament, and I'm really looking forward to see where Scotland go with this, but I think this is a really good opportunity to get some new players in there, get some new bloody players, maybe looking forward to the next Six Nations. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a lot of these lads in the next Six Nations, but maybe looking ahead to the World Cup, getting that broader range of players. Now you know the quality's beginning to come in. Even unheard of players at international stages are really becoming into their own now. Where were people like Duhan van der Merwe? Like 2 years ago, they were just unheard of players. So, I mean, this is the best opportunity now to get into this team, especially when a couple of positions still aren't fully centred off. The centres, for me, is still a little bit of work for Scotland. Their 12-13 combination, they seem to have a lot of people wanting to go for it, but no one is secure there. Of course, Hogg mainly takes that fullback position. There's a couple of people fighting for the fly half position. But there's still a couple of areas you could work on. A lot of people been a little bit down on Duhan van der Merwe. Super aggressive player running forwards, but the defence not quite with him. Could there be a better all-rounder in this mix-up? Who knows? It'll be very fun to see where Scotland go with this. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm so sorry it's taking so long to get to this. They just snuck it past me along the way. But I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. If you did enjoy it, make sure you drop this video a like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't signed up already for the Lions fantasy that's going to be going on, I have done a video on that. check out that video just to get involved a bit more, and there might be some new news coming about a fantasy team a little bit in the future, so make sure you subscribe to this channel just to keep up to date with all the videos as they come out. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye bye.